Freeman Boat Works and Trilogy Outdoors are proud to announce the addition of Freeman Boat Works to our family of incredible partners. Billy Freeman and his team at Freeman Boat Works epitomize the American dream. From building the first boat in Billy's backyard to a 150,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing plant over the past 15 years, they are building one of the most sought-after boats in the U.S. and beyond. These incredible fishing platforms are built in South Carolina and are second to none in stability, speed, and performance overall. These catamaran designs are engineered not only to get you to the fish fast, but comfortably too. Years of refining designs and pioneering the modern performance fishing catamaran is why Freeman Boat Works is the #1 choice for some of the biggest names in the fishing industry. If it's long runs in the Gulf or the Carolinas, or days you can go fishing in South Florida when most center consoles stay at the dock, Freeman Boat Works is at the forefront in all categories. For more information on Freeman Boat Works and their 6 available models, visit www.freemanboatworks.com. Redefine your expectations.
In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, it's time for Trilogy Outdoors, and we are actually back in the Senator's studio here, and it's great to be back with you, Senator. I know y'all been busy, real busy in Columbia.
We have been, yeah. We've been.
Lots of good times. I noticed somebody walking down the street with a Colt 45 hanging on their hip earlier on my way over.
Yeah, that's certainly new.
There we go. But we are here, and you've lined up a great guest for today. And I have now become a chamber heady. I'm trying to figure out the best way to call it, but I am now addicted to watching what y'all do in Columbia.
You're pretty bored.
I'm pretty bored.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
You need to get a life. The bite must be off.
Yeah, the bite's off in Merle's Zone, I can tell you that.
I'm gonna blame it on the 20 hours I was driving in the last week, but that voice you hear is Senator Chip Campsen.
Listening to us out of boredom, that's understandable.
Acceptable. Yeah.
I can tell you that from an outsider looking in, and I know it's boring to y'all, but it is far from boring because I am starting to pick out personalities. And I'll text Steve, and he knows it. I'll text him and be like, man, I'm a real fan of this guy. Don't say any names who it was, but there are people that I'm picking out. But then it's all of a sudden, something else, another topic comes up or another bill comes up. I'm like, man, I hate this dude.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're getting some entertainment out of it.
I am, and I'm learning a lot. And speaking of learning, that's why we wanted to get Chip on. And
well, let me just make a comment on this issue. We always ridicule ourselves. If we didn't, we'd be too egotistic, right? With regard to what goes on in the Senate. But in reality, it is a very deliberative body. We actually get a lot done. If you go serve in Congress, in the House of Representatives, you can be there 10 years and not a single jot or tittle is different of federal law. That's the norm. All you are is you're one of you're just a school. You just have to vote in a herd. But in the South Carolina Senate, we can really make a difference, and that's why I serve. That's why Senator Goldfinch serves, because we can really make a difference in that forum. It's not about ego, because no one knows who you are hardly. I don't care. I just care whether God knows I made a difference. That's what matters. And you want to make a difference, that's the place to do it.
I agree.
That's the same pitch, by the way, that he gave me a few years ago
When he talked you into running?
Talked me out of running for Congress.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
He called me one day. He called me one day out of the blue and said, I don't know what you're thinking, but if you're thinking about running for Congress, you shouldn't." And he gave that same speech, and it was very impactful at the time, actually.
Plus your children. Plus
Yeah.
I considered it when I had younger children. I could never figure out how I could meet my fatherly duties and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And serve in Congress. And Stephen, you're in that.
Yeah.
You're in that mode as well. So that's just another reason not to do it.
Well, our fatherly duties. I'm glad you brought that up. This is off topic, English, but
Yep.
I'm glad you brought that up because we came here to talk about the timber industry today, but we're going to get off topic for a second. I believe our fatherly duties are a little different than what most of the world would see or do today. We have the privilege of having grown up on the coast, you and I, and English, and sort of learning being steeped in this environment that is so different from everywhere else. And I almost feel like it's a duty. It's more than a responsibility to sort of pass along that culture, that heritage to our children. And you got to take every opportunity you can to do that in this world of technology and cell phones and computers and social media. You have to take at least I do, to have to take a very proactive approach in getting the electronic out of their hand and putting a fishing pole or a rifle or a shotgun in their hand or a knife, and
Or sword.
or something, yeah, something. And so anyway, blessed but cursed all at the same time, because it is a duty. And it does require more than just sitting your kids down in front of an iPad, which is how so many people parent nowadays. And I'm not here to chastise anybody's parenting, but good God, man. I mean, have you been to a restaurant lately and looked around? How many 3, 4, 5, 10-year-old kids sitting with their parents and they're all on a phone or an iPad? Mm-hmm. What is that doing to our society? I mean, it's terrible. It's like the scourge of the earth. And I don't know how we get out of it.
I'm guilty, and I'm going to say this, that in the last 5 days with my 6-year-old, we had a boys' trip. We took a boys' trip. We were actually supposed to be turkey hunting with some friends of ours, and we ended up just letting them do the turkey hunting, and we went and did our own thing. But I learned in the last 6 days that my son knows a lot of stuff, some that he shouldn't know, and some that I'm blessed that he does know at 6 years old, but it's scary, and it's partially my fault because of the times that he does get to spend on that iPad, and I will self-admittedly say that I look at that sometimes as a babysitter, and I will say I was blessed to have it in the car because I couldn't imagine talking to him for 12 hours. He had his headphones on, watching his YouTube stuff, and I was listening to you guys and then listening to everybody complain about forward-facing sonar and bass fishing. I had to listen to about 9 podcasts about that. Mm-hmm. But I'm guilty of it. But Stephen will vouch for me in this. I get my son outdoors and do stuff with him every chance I get. And a lot of it is
every week. Every week.
You help me. But I do. And you drive me to be a better dad. You do.
You got to look in this world. We are inundated with electronics. And, I mean, no matter what you do, no matter how great of a parent you are, no matter how much screen time you limit, they're going to get it, in some way, shape, or form. They're going to get it. And they're getting it in school nowadays, too. So they're going to get it. And look, I'm just as guilty. Like, if you're on a road trip, I totally agree. You can't talk to 2 6-year-olds or 8-year-olds for 10 or 12 hours on a road trip. Okay, I got that. But if I'm sitting down at a dinner table, we don't have phones or iPads because they need to learn that face-to-face communication.
Exactly. I agree with you.
They really need to do that. And so anyway.
Chip, you got
older.
I'll
tell you a secret. You got older. My boys,
older
they're
kids.
Adults now,
yep.
But we didn't let them have, I call them dumb phones.
Yeah.
Until they graduated from college, they had flip phones.
That's awesome.
They were the only guys at the Citadel, and in high school who didn't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
And I know more about technology and all that stuff than they do, which is very, very little. But they focused on the outdoors, and my wife was magnificent. She realized the time spent with me and other adult successful men when they were young boys, was time well spent, because they're learning from successful professional and business people, and they're developing their passion for hunting and fishing. And pretty much all through high school, even into the Citadel years, my boys, and they still do it periodically, but if they didn't know what was going on this weekend, they said, "Dad, what are we doing this weekend?" Right. They didn't go out with their testosterone driven, crazed, peers in high school. They went hunting with me and with other successful, accomplished businessmen, professional adults. And my wife she spent a lot of lonely weekends, but she knew that was developing our boys into individuals that would be counter to the popular culture, and they are very counter to the popular culture. And that's one of the best things.
It is.
That I did. My dad used to call it, "Let's spend time hugging Mother Nature," whether you're hunting or fishing or whatever it is you're doing. And they still, to this day, they're some of the finest outdoorsmen in the state of South Carolina, without a doubt. And they also maintained a traditional Judeo-Christian value system the entire way, and still have it today. But it's because they were not really influenced by that others on social media platforms and things like that. They didn't even know how to get to them.
A lot of that crap is what I call it.
And it is influencing. So many people think that they're immune to it, and you're not. You're just not. The algorithms that are in the phones nowadays are addictive, and they're built that way. They're literally artificial intelligence built into the algorithms to keep you scrolling.
Yep.
I read this article and listened to a podcast by the guy that invented the endless scroll. It's an algorithm. It's an AI algorithm that is designed to populate stuff that interests you and give you little dopamine hits, one after another, after another, after another, and it never ends. And that's called the endless scroll. He invented it, and he invented it for the sole purpose of making money for the social media platforms. That's the sole purpose.
Through addiction.
For addiction. It's just like a drug. And we're all subject to that addiction. And
yeah.
It's a pretty scary thing. And really, I told my wife this, and this may seem a little dramatic to y'all, or maybe not, but we were talking yesterday on the way to Charleston. Well, we had to go down there for a birthday party, and she said, we were talking about the future and when I'm going to quote unquote retire, and not from politics, from the law, from the legal business. And I said, you know what, if I was to ever do that in the near future, what I'd like to do is I'd like to buy a place in Colorado that is a little bigger than what we have now, what we here, and sort of get us off the grid for a few months out the year, just totally off the grid for a few months out the year. And to my surprise, that's good. She was actually very agreeable to that.
Well, she loved the hunting trip this year to Colorado.
She did. Yeah, she did. It's I think the idea anymore of getting off, and what I mean off the grid, I don't mean using an outhouse. You can do it with style and grace, but just totally disconnected from the world itself, and sort of living on your own on a ranch out west somewhere for at least a few months out the year to get back to nature and get back to what it's all about.
Well, the new Goldfinch barn dominium that should be finishing up not long from now
Yeah,
is going to be a great little place to get away.
it is. It's we've got a duck impoundment there. We've obviously got deer hunting and turkey hunting, and we've got some wild quail. I was telling Chip about that a couple of weeks ago. We cut a piece of timber in there last year that kept it pretty thin. I mean, we're at 30 trees an acre in that one section in the back, and it's going to come up. It's going to come up in big blue stem and little blue stem, and it's becoming a really good looking quail spot too. And so anyway, go ahead.
Did you know the later you burn, the more you generate broom straw?
I
You burn
did.
earlier and you have less broom straw, so you can kind of regulate it. Like we ended up on our quail hunting property with kind of too thick a broom straw.
Right.
And so we're gonna start burning. I don't know if I said it. I might have said it backwards. The later you burn, the less broom straw. The earlier you burn, the more. I think that's the right way. So,
There you go. Yeah. Well,
you can regulate it by the timing of your burns as far as density of broom straw.
if we can get a good dry spell in the summer, after turkeys and quail have hatched, ground nesting birds, I'm going to try to do a growing season burn this year in one little, like 10-acre section that I've got in there that's starting to come up in gums.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing.
I've got it's a pretty little section of the farm, but I've got a lot of woody growth and gums coming up in it too, and I got to get rid of that before that gets out of control. And so I'm gonna try, I don't know, like a July-ish burn and see how it goes. If everything's not too green and wet, we'll see how it goes. I'd like to. I've never been successful doing a real growing season. You can do one about now, right? I mean, that's easy, but like a real growing season burn where you can actually, put the gums back. I've never had a lot of success with it around here.
And that's a later one?
Yeah, like a summer burn. I'm going to do a lot of those. I mean, where I have low timber density, mature timber, you got to be worried about getting too hot if you have bays and things like that are waxy and going to get really hot. But if you've already kind of done some burning in those areas, then a growing season burn is what kills these waxy hardwoods. After they start sprouting and then you hit them, that kills them.
What about herbicide treatment before? You ever do any herbicide treatment before burns like that?
Well, when bay bushes I have, because I've had bay bushes that are, I mean, literally, I'd sleep like a baby with a pride of lions surrounding me if I were in the middle of those bay bushes. That's how bad they were.
yeah, I've had one of those too.
I had them like 12 feet tall with, like almost 2.5-inch diameter stems. And I herbicide and burn. I did it it took me 3 times, but now it's right. Don't ever let them get away from you. That's what I'll tell you. That's the problem. If you let them get away, you got a multi-year.
Chip, are you a big turkey hunter?
Control.
Are you a big turkey hunter also?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
So are we talking about on the Ace Basin property or somewhere else?
Yeah, down in the Ace Basin.
Oh my God, that place is beautiful. Russ and I we didn't get to see it when we left on Tuesday because I drove all the way through the night. But coming back last night, we got to see that at daylight, and it was a moon. Are y'all? I think y'all had some flood ties down there yesterday, and I'm sure today.
We had some huge tides on. Yes, we did on day before yesterday.
Right.
We had about 3.5 inches of rain, and had on top of a lot of rain just maybe 4 days before, and then a high astronomical tide, and it was a lot of water.
That Ace Basin is beautiful.
It is. I drove through there a lot on the way back and forth from Fort Stewart.
From Stewart, yeah.
And coming through just straight down 17 basically, and coming through Yemassee and all that. And when you're crossing the Ace Basin. What's the name of that bridge, Chip?
Harriet Tubman Bridge
There you go.
on the Combahee River.
On the
Right.
Yeah. So where you've got it, where it looks like the delta, on both sides of the bridge.
Yep.
On the left side, which would be the west side, I guess, on the west side of 17, there's some. It looks like hills almost out in the distance. There's actually a house on one. It looks like that, and the hills look like they're in the actual marsh. You familiar with where I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we own the property on the right side of the highway when you're heading that way.
So you're on the
Spring.
right. All right. So you're on
the right. What you see when you're coming over the Tubman Bridge heading north,
right,
is Laurel Spring on the right, and on the left, you're talking about Myrtle Grove.
All right. So I've never. Yeah, I mean, at least around here, when you have an island in the marsh, it doesn't pop out of the. I mean, these things look like they've got 30, 40 feet of elevation. And I mean, I've just not.
Well, you go further down to Combahee, the Cheehaw Combahee plantation, which is at the very it's in Wiggins, and it has bluffs on the Combahee River that are 40 feet high for a large part of that. There's really a lot of good elevation right on the rivers that we don't have in the Charleston area and the Delta, because the southern part of the coast is primarily the islands, and the waterfront property is really a function of rivers that cut through highland, and so you have a lot of high bluffs, whereas you get to the northern coast and it's mainly accreted land. It's mainly accreted old sand dunes, that ends up as the water, as oceans. We know oceans used to be up, the shore used to be in Columbia, right?
Right.
300 feet elevation, and they used to be at 180 feet where we fish offshore on the ledge, 180 feet deep, and that's how much the variation has been. But so this northern coast is largely about accreted sand dunes, and you don't get a whole lot of elevation on the coast, whereas the southern coast is different, and it does have a lot of elevation on a lot of the land because it's rivers that ran through and created these islands, as opposed to accretion from sand dune systems.
Which I guess why you get a lot of the fossils that you get down there as well. When you
Lots.
So we had a guy digging wells for us up here in Orion, Georgetown County, and dug quite a few wells for me, and he dug a well for my dad. And he dug a well for my neighbor last year, a deep water well for my neighbor who was putting it in impoundment last year. And at 280 feet deep, he pulled up a couple of shark's teeth, the size of your thumbnail.
There you go.
280 feet deep in Yalhanna, which is on the PD River, which is 10 miles inland from Georgetown.
Right.
So 280 feet deep. Just think about the changes that the earth had to have gone through in order to have, you got shark's teeth in Charleston that are surface level, and you've got shark's teeth in Georgetown 280 feet deep.
Do you know that at 300? Do you know that? See, I've been listening to y'all. And do you know?
Did you know?
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Did you know that at 300 feet with my drone at your property, I can see the ocean? Did you know?
No,
you can do what?
I can see the ocean from Stephen's property at 300 feet in the air with my drone. If I got it at 300 feet,
yeah,
I can see the ocean from Stephen's property.
Probably Winyah Bay, but yeah, I mean, same point. It's really not that far by the crow fly. So when we're coming over Inglis, we burned maybe 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
At my place.
Yeah.
Burned maybe 60 acres, okay, out of the property that we could burn that day. And when Tripp and I were coming over the Walkamaw River Bridge,
saw the smoke.
Winyah Bridge, we could see the smoke. Look, 2 miles away.
Yep.
I mean, it is not far at all by the crow flies.
It's 4 miles to your property from right here.
Yeah, from my house right here across the river,
4
it's
miles.
only 4 miles. Yeah, it's not far at all.
An hour drive.
But there's no way to get there.
No.
Right? There's no way to get there.
We got to get y'all to work on that.
All right, listen, we came here to call Chuck.
Well, y'all had me all set up when you were talking about clearing out your trees
We
at the
did.
property. I was getting ready to roll right into it, but man, I could sit here and talk outdoors with both of y'all forever.
I know it was a great segue.
It was going to be perfect to go into it.
I'm coming right back to it. So
all right, bring us to it.
Here we are talking about timber with Senator Chip Campsen. How'd you like that? Here we are talking about timber with Senator
Perfect.
Chip Campsen. Chip, I think you primarily more than anybody have sort of taken this bull by the horns on, our pulpwood problem in South Carolina and the timber issue that we have here. Can you sort of just lay it out for us and tell us, in your opinion, what the problem is, and then we can talk about solutions?
Yeah. Well, I do grow timber for harvest, and my wife's family has for generations, and I'm chairman of the Fish Game Forestry Committee with jurisdiction over this, and so we have a significant challenge to the forestry industry. So I organized that meeting, the committee meeting, full committee meeting we had, just so members can become aware of the real problem we have in the forestry industry. And the forestry industry is the largest industry in the state by payroll. It is the third largest industry in the state by gross domestic product or income. It's over a $23 billion industry. Most people have no idea that's the case.
I had no idea either.
How big it is. And there's not a single district, probably maybe an urban district in Richland County or in North Charleston, but by and large, there's not a district in the state of South Carolina, a Senate district, that is not going to be significantly impacted by what's going on in the timber industry. The largest timber production is your own Georgetown County.
Right.
The second largest is my second home, Colleton County. So you have a lot of trees in the coastal plain, but you have them all over the state. But this is the problem we're having. First of all, to understand the problem, you need to understand the way in which forestry practices have evolved over time, and the way that you grow saw timber. Some people grow poles, which takes a long time, but most people do a final harvest when they have saw timber. Saw timber are trees large enough to create dimensional lumber out of it, 2x4s, 6x6s, 8x8s. But to get there, and that's where you get your biggest bang for the buck. But to get there, you have to plant trees. Basically, you clear cut a saw timber tract, then you plant trees again. And you're going to have to thin those trees, depending on the site index, which is the quality of the soil, and the genetics of the trees, because the genetics have really been improved a lot. You may do your first thinning in 8 or 10 years, and then you do a second thinning about 4 years after that. And both of those are pulpwood thinnings, meaning that you can't make any dimensional lumber. You can't make any boards out of it. All you're doing is selling it as pulp, which is used largely in the paper to produce paper products, paper mills, like the paper mill in Georgetown. And then after your second thinning, your next cut will be a chip and saw, which is a little bit of saw timber, but still some pulp, which are wood chips. And then on the fourth go round do you actually cut saw timber. And so this is a 20+ year cycle for all that to happen. Of course, foresters have different age groups, so they're generating revenue and from different categories of lumber of trees all the time. But the biggest point is this: you cannot economically grow saw timber if you cannot cut pulpwood. You have to have two pulp thinnings, and only after your second pulp thinning, your next harvest is going to be not a clear cut, but it's going to be chip and saw. You still have pulpwood even on the third cutting, and you have to have markets for that pulpwood in order to grow saw timber. And in South Carolina, we largely have lost our markets for pulpwood. The West Rock plant closed down. The Camphor plant in North Carolina closed down. And paper mills aren't coming back because EPA regs are so strict. Paper mills are being located offshore where they don't have the regs. There'll be no new paper mills probably in the Southeast. And so when West Rock shuts down, it's a real crisis for the forestry industry, because we're losing a market for pulpwood. There is a wood chip bulk loading facility in Savannah, and there's one in Wilmington, but we don't have one at the Port of Charleston, and that's the main thing that we need in the Port of Charleston is that.
And some
we
people
need wood pellet.
Some people, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but some people would ask, well, why can't you ship it there? And the answer is economics, right?
Right. You can't, it's uneconomic to travel more than 60 or 65 miles with a load of logs or pulpwood.
You start losing money because of the shipping costs.
You lose money. And the last person to get anything is the property owner. And so the property owner is not going to sell.
Right.
We had, like last time I sold pulpwood, it was $12.50 a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are getting $2 a ton if they can get it at all.
Right.
If they can even get to market. If you're above I-85 in South Carolina, there's essentially no market for your pulpwood.
Yeah.
McCormick County, Abbeville County, they have huge timber tracts. They don't have a market for the pulpwood. And so Now there are markets. They're just different markets. It's not like we are growing more wood fiber than we harvest every year. We're growing 30% more fiber every year than what is harvested. And so become very efficient. The genetics of the trees have been enhanced. Forestry practices dramatically enhanced. And so we're the world's fiber belt. People don't realize that. We're like what Ukraine used to be before the war.
Right.
The grain, that's what we are to the rest of the world when it comes to fiber. The European Union, their forests have been devastated by poor government policies, just like California, that creates fires and creates disease. And if you can't thin your timber tract, you're going to end up with trees taking a lot longer to become saw timber, because trees will have to die in order for some to survive, because they're competing for sunlight, for photosynthesis. And if you can't catch and thinning the timber enables the trees that are remaining to grow rapidly, because they're not shaded out by other trees, competing trees. And that's why harvesting pulp is so important. And we do have markets. We have robust markets. They're overseas markets, though. And the only way to really economically that we're aware of, we're still trying to experiment with some different ideas, but to load a break bulk ship with wood chips and send them overseas is a proven economic way to get pulpwood to market. It's happening in Wilmington and it's happening in Savannah. What we need is one of those in Charleston or in Georgetown or both.
And by the way, if
bulk loading is a ship, not a container ship. It's a ship that has hatches on the foredeck and you open up the hatches and you take a conveyor belt and you drop the wood chips in there. You fill the whole of the ship up with wood chips, and then you send it overseas. That is an economic way to do it. We know that, and we just don't have that in the Port of Charleston, and we need that in the Port of Charleston.
And by the way, if you're concerned about wildlife, if you're one of those people like us that are rightfully concerned about wildlife, if you've ever been into a forest that is all whips, and what I mean by whips are, little trees that are competing with each other that grow straight up out the ground, and they're so thick that they've shaded out the understory. They've never been thinned. It is a wildlife desert.
Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah.
There is nothing there. Nothing lives there. It is no good for anything. And so this natural process, I shouldn't say natural, this process that foresters have developed over, a millennia, it's not only the right thing to do for us economically, because you have to thin the trees 3 or 4 times to get a good cut. It's not only the right thing to do economically, it's the right thing to do for nature. And so, to move down this path of, like Senator Campsen said, of California or the European Union for the sake of wildlife or for the sake of nature is nothing but folly.
Well, I'll say this too. I think it will dramatically, you and I both have done a lot for conservation in the South Carolina Senate. And everyone's a conservationist now. I can remember when I authored the Conservation Bank, it was pulling teeth. It was nip and tuck, getting it passed when I was in the House. And now everyone just wants to know, where can I sign up? Because the Conservation Bank has protected so much iconic property in pretty much in every parts of all over the state in different regions. Mm-hmm. And the Conservation Bank, what it does is it provides a funding mechanism to purchase, in part, to contribute purchasing of the purchase of a conservation easement from private owners, property owners, and also from public entities. So it provides a funding mechanism to put an easement, which is a permanent commitment not to develop the property,
right,
one way or the other. Now, and so when you put an easement on your property, one of the only ways left to monetize the value of your property is by cutting timber. Virtually no conservation easements have limits on cutting timber. You have to use best practices, which all foresters do that anyway, professional foresters.
Right.
But if you can't cut pulpwood, you can't grow salt timber. You're going to have, what are you going to do? You're going to sell your property to a tract home builder as opposed to harvesting timber, because you can't monetize it in any way. And fewer people are going to do easements, which is what's protected the Ace Basin and, the Santee Delta, the places we've been talking about, but other places all around the state. This is a real threat to conservation.
Yeah, and I think that's a great takeaway for everybody is, okay, well, if you think that the timber business doesn't affect you, you're wrong.
No.
It affects everybody in this entire state, whether you're on the left side of the political spectrum or on the right side of the political spectrum, whether you are interested in seeing limits on development or whether you're interested in seeing wildlife flourish. Wherever you are, the timber business touches you, and this is a major threat to that.
I'm going to definitely be sure to include a link for everyone to go watch the hearing that y'all had.
Yeah.
Because I want everybody to see. I thought, Chip, your first guest that you had on was awesome. All the graphs he had, all the jobs that he had are directly, affected by this. I grew up in Lake City, South Carolina. I grew up I started thinking about it yesterday. All my friends that in some way, shape, or form, their family were in the timber business. And until I sat there and started thinking about it, I thought all my friends were farmers. I grew up with, my dad was the golf pro there, but I grew up thinking, oh, they're farmers. But then when I started thinking about it, they were timber cruisers.
Yeah.
One dad was a timber cruiser. Another worked for sawmill, worked for a big sawmill, and the other owned some trucks. He did hauling of timber. And so it was a huge part of there. But I could, I listened to all your guests you had on, and there are so many different people in the state that are directly affected by what we're going through now, and there's got to be some change to help, and to I mean, in all honesty, this is one of our easier ways to slow down growth as far as becoming, everything becoming a neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah. And we're not the best at a lot of things, but the Southeast is the world's fiber belt. It is where growing pine trees in the Southeast. It's where we do it better than any place in the world, and we need markets for pulpwood in order to keep that going. And so this meeting didn't happen by chance. I mean, it's something that I've strategically planned with Trip Chavis, who's the president of Milliken Forestry, who's my forester. And they created a new group, the Forest Landowners Guild, because there's a forestry association, but it has landowners, it has foresters, it also has pulp, international paper, pulpwood manufacturer. Well, pulpwood plants, they love $2 a ton pulpwood. Landowners like $12.50 a ton pulpwood. and so we created this Forest Landowners Guild just to represent, their unique interest in this very difficult time that we are confronted with. And Trip is the kind of the executive director of that guild. And we I've met with the governor, I've met with the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Agriculture over the last year, but I wanted to really bring it to the forefront to the General Assembly, and that meeting was the effort to do that. And I think we did a pretty good job of it, because we had a lot of members there who aren't members of Fish, Game, and Forestry, but they're learning that they have constituents in their counties and their districts that have a lot at stake. And we spent all this money getting sexy things like lithium ion battery manufacturers and airplane manufacturers, but you know what? This is the biggest industry in the state by payroll. It ain't sexy, but it's bread and butter stuff, and it's what we're great at. God has blessed us with an environment, an ecosystem that's great at growing pine trees. We've developed it, and we can't lose it. And what we really need right now is we need the Ports Authority to develop a bulk loading facility for wood chips, because that's the only economic way to get to the markets. We have great demand, but it's demand in places like India and Europe. But it really is economic to do it as long as you just load a ship full of chips and sail it over there. Yeah. It's not economic to do it, to put it in the containers. Too many moves of the product. The more moves you have, the more it has to be handled, the less that the forest landowner is going to get, and it becomes uneconomic to do anything but have a bulk loading facility. That's really what we need.
And really, I mean, this is an effort that the congressional sportsmen should be all about. This is a group. This is a movement that the NRA should be all about, instead of us fussing and fighting over silly things.
Yes.
We should be fussing and fighting over impactful things.
Right.
And this is one of those things that protects our heritage and our culture of hunting and fishing. And And I don't think people have made that connection yet. And I think you.
And I'll tell you this
have.
too. This is a problem. A logging crew. There's a lot of capital invested in a logging crew, and I've dealt with a lot of them. They're some of the. I mean, they're some of really the finest guys you could ever meet. I mean, they know how to do anything. They can fix anything.
Yep.
But a logging crew takes a lot of capital to assemble a logging crew. You have loaders, you have skidders, you have, a ton and a half dualies, you have flatbeds, you have all this equipment you got to move around. And I mean, the capital investment for a logging crew is probably, I think $5 million is low.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly if you bought it new, it'd be more than that.
Oh yeah.
And when they go, they're not coming back. When there's no more market for them to go harvest pulpwood, they're not going to come back. They're going to get out into business. They're going to be doing something else. They're going to be running, a bulldozer for a track home builder, or they're going to be doing something. But for them to get back into business after they shut it down is going to be very difficult to do. That's one of the biggest. So this is not. We need some triage. We need in the long term. We need some bulk. A wood chip bulk loading facility, and we need some wood pellet manufacturers. I mean, I've talked to Keller Cassam, he was there at the meeting, and I'd talked to him a lot before that. This all was executed and planned. It wasn't fly by night. I mean, Keller and I have been talking for months about this.
And Keller is
Keller Cassam's the president of Dominion, South Carolina.
Dominion.
There you go. I just wanted the listeners to hear who that was.
Great guy, and Keller. So Keller is, open, because I raised with him a few months ago about what if we build some generators that can burn wood pellets, as opposed to just they're looking at natural gas, for example.
Mm-hmm.
How about wood pellets? And so there's some federal subsidies for that. Dominion has 3 wood pellet generators in Virginia. So, he's open to that and interested in doing that. So that's just another market for the wood products. So we're not leaving any stone unturned on that front, and hopefully we could get some wood pellet generators. They can build generators now that burn both natural gas and wood pellets in the same generator. You can just switch from different fuel types. And they're looking at doing something like that.
Yeah, so the markets, in summary, the terminal markets exist.
Right.
We have to encourage, incentivize, create the mechanism to get the product to the terminal markets, because right now it just doesn't exist.
The markets we're used to are going the way of the buggy whip, the paper mills in South Carolina and in the country. And it's largely, they're old. Almost all of them are probably Superfund sites. West Rock's is going to be bought by the Ports Authority, I'm sure.
Yep.
And it's probably needs a lot of remediation. It's been a paper mill since 1930 something. I mean, I'm sure there's been a lot of remediation will be needed, but I'm
sure.
But we've been talking to them about a bulk loading facility there. But we need one somewhere, and the Ports Authority, they're a state agency. We're supported by the state. It may not be as sexy it may not be as profitable as handling containers, because that is the most efficient way to ship most things, but it's not the most efficient way to ship wood chips. Yeah, it'll end up being pellets to be burned overseas in the European Union, where they've devastated their forests because of poor management practices.
Yeah, you're not
government policies.
You're not shipping pellets or chips by container. I mean, that
That's not economic.
Right. You're not going to shuttle a bunch of chips into each little container and then put that container on, and then shuttle a bunch of. It's just not economical. I mean, the way that the market. I don't know. That's probably not the right way to say that either. The mechanism we have in place right now at our current port facilities does not support such a process, I guess. And the Ports Authority, government agency, as you said, they have the ability to do that.
Yep.
And we need to encourage them to do that.
That we subsidize.
Yeah.
We gave them $600 million for the Leatherman terminal, more than that for harbor deepening.
Yeah. Yeah.
The governor's asking for $55 million to buy West Rock in his budget.
Right.
Well, part of that needs to be y'all need to make some type of accommodation for the biggest industry in the state. By the way, you need to make accommodation for that.
Yeah, 10%.
Wood chip.
10% of just one of those expenditures would buy a West Rock in that site and probably upfit it to what we need.
Is West Rock located right near the 526 overpass?
Yes. That's the paper mill right there by 526 where it comes into North Charleston.
Yep. Well, Chip, thank you so much for
site for the Ports Authority. With West Rock going out of business, Ports Authority needs to be. They need that property, but we just need to use a little bit of it for a bulk loading facility. And we've also had like Sunoco's gone to be just using renewables. You had the Camphor mill shut down in North Carolina, where the upstate had sent its pulpwood to market. We just got word that another mill is going to, instead of 2 shifts, going to 1 shift. And so we just see this broad across the state, this kind of shutting down of the companies that were previously the market for pulpwood. And it's not like what we're envisioning is economic, because there are robust markets for pulpwood. They're just overseas now.
Right.
Is what they are. And if you're going to keep this industry, again, you can't grow salt timber if you don't cut pulpwood. You can't cut pulpwood if you don't have markets. Well, there are markets. We just need to access them in an economic way, and that's where the bulk loading facility comes in in the port.
Yeah.
At the rate we're at right now, how far out are we before we see where you're saying the $23 billion impact, and number 1 and number 3, how far are we away from seeing those move way down?
Well, we're already losing logging crews. They're already shutting down.
I heard.
I know that. You've heard that probably.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's the first ones to go. And like I say, they're not going to come back easily, because there's a huge capital investment in the logging crew. You know what a tractor costs. Just imagine what a loader a Caterpillar.
Yeah, big Tiger Cat
loader cost.
Yeah,
and a skidder, and you got 3, 3 or 4 skidders and 2 loaders and big
chippers.
Big flatbed trucks, and I mean, that's a lot of money. When they shut down, I don't see them coming back. That's a big concern. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard the one family, the son got up there talking about their business. They had 7 different crews that were traveling, and they had cut a crew down and cut employees as of last year already, and they were worried about having to cut more already. So it's important.
That's the harbinger of a problem right there.
Yeah, and those are solid earth people too. I tell you what, I love interacting with those guys. They are something. I hate, but we're gonna lose a lot culturally when we lose them. But they're essential for the whole forest products industry to work.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep it figuring out how to do it and keep it going, right?
Yeah.
We're challenging y'all. That's your job, right?
Chip, Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, explaining a lot of this. It's always a pleasure to talk
Yeah,
to
man,
you.
especially on one of your couple days that you actually don't have to go stand down in the well and argue with everybody.
You broke up on me on that. What'd you say?
I said, especially on one of your days where you don't, one of your few days a week where y'all aren't having to run down to the well and busy up there pushing great things through and everything else. We appreciate you taking a Monday morning off to chat with us.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I've always enjoyed talking to y'all. This is my second.
Yeah, we got to
my
do some
second-
offshore fishing, Stephen, with him. You got to talk offshore fishing.
Has your boat been in the yard, Chip? Are y'all ready for the year?
We're not putting it in the yard this year. We're gonna have a pretty big yard next year. But we did a 1,000-hour service on the engines, which was a pretty good hit in and of itself.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but it's ready to go, and we're also pulled the wheels off with a diver, and we got a little bit of vibration, I think. So we're gonna just make sure the wheels are balanced, and
You got that Omni system set up, ready to go?
the Omni system.
The new sonar.
Oh no, I don't have that. No, that's we're not going to spend that kind of money. Maybe those things will come down one day. I mean, I fish tournaments on boats that have them. It's pretty. It's almost cheating, really.
Thank you.
It takes a while to figure it out, but
Yeah.
but it's a real issue among tournament fishermen. Should you even have a different category of boats that don't have the sonar and boats that do, because the boats that do have it have such an advantage.
Huge advantage.
We've been debating this for
captains
months.
who are just very outstanding captains. They have been for years, and they fishing without the sonar against a boat with a captain that's not, this outstanding, well-established, successful captain, and that guy's beating him because he has the sonar. And so now folks are saying, you're going to make me, I mean, you take a boat, you got to refit it with sonar. You're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, the system's $150,000, and you got to cut holes in the bottom, and sometimes you got to move your fuel tank or have some column in the fuel tank where your sonar, because those sonars go down about 3 or 4 feet, and come up in the hull, and so it just raises the cost of fishing those tournaments competitively dramatically. And I fish on a boat that's done it, but I mean, I hadn't put it on my personal boat.
I've got the baby version of it on my new boat, and I've got Live Scope, which is Garmin's version of forward facing sonar, which they are really similar. They are, and I can tell you that it is a game changer. The things that I can see with mine on my little boat inshore, I can only imagine offshore. And I have seen videos from friends of mine on offshore boats. I don't know if you know the boat Insano. They have it. My good friend Denton Williams and Seth. But I've seen video in how they target these fish and how they track them, and it is a game changer. It is.
Yeah, you can see a billfish like 500 yards away or 400 yards away, right on the surface.
Yeah.
And or down deep too, I'm gonna go pull a bait across that one, and otherwise you wouldn't even know it, and you just keep on trolling.
Right.
I can pull mine up. I had DNR contact me last week, actually, so y'all get ready because it's probably coming to y'all. But they want to put 5 of these units on boats that I have for body recovery. That's how incredible it is. I mean, this Garmin Live Scope forward-facing sonar is that detailed. I mean, I just fished on the nearshore reef for Sheep's Head at CCA Reef at North Inlet Reef here, and I mean, I feel like we could see the wheel inside the wheelhouse. We could see the wheel inside of it. We could see I mean, you can see such details in the boat that it's unbelievable. And I can tell you the black drum that were on the bottom. I can tell you the sheep's head where they were. We watched the school of sheep's head. And then I could see all the pesky black sea bass that were sitting on top and swimming in and out. And then when you go to the river, like I can pull up to a brush pile, drop it down, see 200 crappie, fish for 30 minutes and not get a bite, and I want to throw that thing off the boat. Because the old me would have just kept moving and gone and found another one. But when you see that many fish down there, you're like, well, they got to be biting. And so I'm throwing live bait down there. I'm throwing grubs. But in bass fishing now, it is the biggest topic, and that's what Stephen was referencing. We've been debating this for a while. But in the tournament bass fishing world, it has absolutely just changed it. It is the hottest topic, good, bad, or indifferent. In bass fishing world, because the tournament guys are now fishing 90% of the water where they never touched before, and they're finding bigger fish, more fish, and it's just killing the older guys that refuse to learn to use it.
For sure.
Well, how much does it cost to put it on a bass boat? I'm sure it's a lot less than
it's a lot less. My unit, just on my boat, my unit for the transducer pole and everything, because I've got it rigged up where I can remove it and put it out and down, and everything else is around $4,800 for the computer, the brain, the transducer, and the transducer mount. So I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not that high. On the bass boat, some of these guys are running nearly $20,000 to $30,000 worth of electronics now because they're adding it. These tournament guys.
Well, these on a sporty to retrofit it.
Oh, it's $300,000.
Probably $300,000.
Exactly.
$350, something like that.
Yeah, they're putting.
That's probably about the norm.
They're putting them on Freeman's now out the factory. They've got certified to put them on now, and I think the option at the Freeman factory is like $112,000 to put an Omni in or something like that.
Yeah, if you do one, you build one with it, it's much less. But when you go to retrofitting, it's hard to find enough space to have this 4 to 6 foot, pole come up in, pull it up into the engine room somewhere without hitting something. Normally you have to just retrofit everything.
Right.
And that's what costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
I know some people who had to take the fuel tank out, put a cylinder in the fuel tank that would be the where the probe would come up into the boat, and you do something like that. I mean, that's a ton of money if you're doing that to a sports fisherman.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
So brand new, it's a lot better, but you retrofit, that's a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I would have the problem with, you guys have, these boats, these million, obviously way plus boats, to go back and cut a hole in the bottom of the boat and put it in there. Mentally, that would be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, final question, Chip. Separate categories, or ban outright, or leave it alone and let the...
Some have banned.
Good question.
I mean, like Virginia Beach, they banned them.
Yeah.
I fish Virginia Beach regularly, but then you have... I think when it comes to the Governor's Cup Series, it's already kind of a moot issue, because so many of the board and all, they ended up getting it, and that it's probably there, and there's probably not going to be separate categories. But then you take places like the White Marlin Open. I mean, that's the biggest tournament as far as number of boats, and a big reason they do it is because they have so many boats because it's the biggest white marlin. And what's the biggest white marlin? It's 8 pounds bigger than a normal white marlin.
Right.
Right.
It's hardly any
Yeah.
different. So anyone can be lucky. Go out there in your outboard, and you're fishing against almost professional class kind of offshore fishing crews on sport and on sports fishermen. But you may be the lucky guy, and you get an 85-pound white marlin, and the next guy gets a 76-pound one, and you win. And you win millions of dollars.
Millions.
You win that tournament.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So, that kind of thing will still be going on, but your normal tournaments, you're just going to have people who don't have it. They're going to end up just not participating because it's such an advantage. If they're unwilling to put that several $100,000 into doing it, they're just going to quit fishing the tournaments.
Similar happened in bass fishing. Tennessee Valley Authority that manages all that water down through the Tennessee River.
Yeah.
They have outlawed tournaments with live scope. In other words, you can fish a tournament there. You're able to fish with it. You cannot use your live scope.
Yeah.
You know,
And that
that's
was just
more
done by the
mano
body of
mano,
water.
you know, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's like, you know, the best. Who's the best? I mean, still good captains they're going to still do well, even if everyone has a scope. But
Amen.
But with no scopes, the really good captains and crew is captains and crew, but the captain is the one responsible for finding a fish. The crew's responsible for hooking it. But there's a big distinction between captains, and now that's been diminished some because of the scope.
For sure. Yeah.
Some just can sniff them out.
All right. Well, listen, before we let you go, one more question.
Oh.
While I got you and Stephen on, I always ask Stephen this when we do a show on Monday. What's big on the docket for this week at the State House? Anything?
Judicial reform.
Judicial reform.
Judicial
wow,
election
has
reform.
that a hot topic?
That's it. That is a very hot topic.
It's very hot. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll be looking for that.
What's that?
I said we'll be looking to watch that and see how that goes down. And what we're talking about is obviously the election of judges. Is that correct? Is that where we're at?
Yeah. You want to, Chip, I don't know if you need to go, but if you want to give us a quick primer on why you think that the legislature should still be, which I agree with you, by the way. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote, but if you want to give us a quick primer on why you think the legislature still has a place in this process, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, I gave a little speech it was Thursday, I think, wasn't it?
I think so.
That.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to your founding principles. I mean, when you evaluate the interaction or the part that one branch of government should play in selecting another competing branch of government, you need to go back to the founding principles. And this principle, I quoted Federalist 51, James Madison, and in Federalist 51, Madison was talking about the separation of powers doctrine and why we have these separate powers and why we equip each branch with devices to keep the other two branches in check. And that's to preserve liberty. And it's like, I can use with y'all, I'd like to use this analogy. It's like putting three crabs in a bucket. One's legislative branch, one's judicial branch, one's executive. When one crab starts to crawl out, meaning get an advantage, I'm going to escape. The other two crabs, what do? They grab them and hold them down.
Right.
Or it's like putting a three rugby teams in a scrum, and each team doesn't want any of the others to get ahead, to score. And so what happens when one gets about to score, the other two teams just pile up on them and stop them. And so you end up with nothing much happening. I mean, which means you're limiting the ability of one branch to have ascendancy over the other. It's very, very important. It's the only thing that preserves liberty. It's not the benevolence of human beings. It's the diffusion of power and the competition. Madison said in Federalist 51, ambition must counteract ambition. And it also said that those who exercise this ambition, he's talking about the three branches, must have a jealousy for their own role, essentially, in the three branches of government and the separation of powers doctrine. And so we had these proposals we're gonna get legislators out of the business of voting on judges, and we're gonna get solicitors and indigent defense attorneys elect. Well, I was chairman of the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. I was on it for several years, vice chairman. And when I get someone before me, particularly a Supreme Court justice, I ask them questions that no indigent defense attorney would ever consider, such as, what are your principles of statutory construction? Why? I'm a senator. I want to know, are you going to willy-nilly strike down something or interpret something, a bill that we pass, a law that we passed in some crazy way? Or are you going to stick to strict principles of statutory construction?
Yeah. Or what's a political
Another question.
Yeah.
What's a non-justiciable political question?
Yeah.
That's where a judge says, you know what, this is left to the political branches under the Constitution, which are the executive and the legislative branch. We're not going to even weigh in on this.
Right.
What's your view of are there unenumerated rights in the state constitution?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are questions that only another branch of government would ask. Now, I think the governor ought to have more role. Frankly, I want the governor to nominate, and we go through judicial merit selection, and we vote on them, and we would have the most robust advice and consent process in the nation.
Like the federal government, essentially.
Yeah, like the federal government. Probably can't get that, but I think
Yeah.
we can at least get gubernatorial representation on the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. And then when it comes to, we got a few bad actors who may do bad things, use that to their advantage. We got ethics. I've got a proposal, an amendment to this bill to make it an ethics violation if you use your position on JMSC for your advantage or your client's advantage as a lawyer.
As it should be.
Give them an ethics violation. You don't throw the whole thing out of the window. We'll throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. No. Usually
they can get charged with an ethics violation if they use that.
As you
for their
know,
own advantage.
These knee-jerk reactions to throw the baby out with the bathwater is usually a result of one or two bad actors, and
Right.
and that's unfortunate. Our gut instinct, not mine and yours, but I think the legislature in general, our gut instinct is to dampen or inhibit the power of one branch of government or increase the power of another branch of government to resolve these problems, rather than relying on the separation of powers and ambition, balancing ambition, as you said. I always enjoy hearing that argument. You make it very well.
Yeah, you do. So what has brought on the need for this reform? Something happened that yes, there we go. I kind of gathered there's a newspaper article somewhere, right?
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the separation of powers doctrine is the most important legal concept the mind of man has ever produced. It is. It is the difference, but it is the harbinger of liberty and freedom. The only thing that keeps us from being China or Russia is the separation of powers doctrine. In fact, Russia has a constitution, they have a First Amendment very similar to ours, but it's just not enforced. Why? Because there's a dictator and there is no other branch of government to enforce it.
Right.
And that alone is what preserves liberty, the separation of powers. And if you just say we're going to let the solicitors who have no jealousy for the legislative branch, will not defend the legislative branch, don't want to ask questions like how do you construe statutes, how do you construe constitutional provisions, they don't care about that. It's never affected them. It will never affect them.
It's not their job.
You can't have those people being the ones selecting the judge.
Yeah, it's not their job. It's not their job to defend the legislative branch.
It's not in their self-interest to do that.
Right.
It's in our self-interest to do that. And I don't want to be more powerful than any other branch. I want to be equally powerful with the other branches, because that is what produces liberty. That and that alone. It's not the benevolence of the people that serve. It's the limitations on each branch's power by capitalizing upon the self-interest of each branch to have this perpetual effort at trying to hold the other branches down or get a little leg up on them, because the three are co-equal. No one can ever get a leg up on anyone, and liberty's protected. That's the only way. That's the only thing that protects liberty.
Great way to close it out. English, you got anything else?
No, man, I'm good. Chip, thank you so much. That was great.
Always enjoy hearing you talk, my friend, and I look forward to seeing you this week.
Okay, look forward to it.
Thanks.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, man. He's great.
He's always fun to talk to. If I don't know,
Can I say what I wrote down and asked you?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, you should ask. You should have asked him directly. I don't know. English wants to know if Campsen's ever going to run for governor. I don't know the answer to that question. He can answer that for us, but
I know he's highly respected in the Senate. I know he is, and all you have to do is watch him. And
this is no knock on Henry McMaster. Okay, so don't take
no.
Don't take it that. No, I'm going to make a statement.
Okay, all right.
It may sound like a knock on, and it's not a knock on Henry.
But isn't there a limit to terms for governor?
Oh yeah, there's two terms. This is not a knock on Henry. Henry and I are friends.
Yep.
Governor McMaster and our friends. But anymore, it takes a very
you gotta be careful.
Yeah, it takes a very special person to be governor, to be elected statewide.
Right.
Okay, it takes a very special person. And oftentimes, not always, oftentimes, people that speak their minds are not great at getting elected statewide. What it requires to get elected statewide is somebody that is a political animal. I mean, really a political animal. And oftentimes you have to go to the extreme of the extreme on either side of the aisle in order to get elected in the primary, because the people that turn out in a primary are the most interested, the most involved, the most dedicated for their party, right?
Right.
Usually only 20% of the electorate, the Republican electorate, will turn out.
For a primary.
For a primary, yeah. 20 to 30% will turn out for a primary. And so you can imagine out of the Republicans, the 20 or 30% that turn out in a primary are the most dedicated.
Right.
You know, they feel like they're invested in the process, right? And so if you don't sell yourself to them as the primary candidate by speaking all the language that you have to speak, by declining to speak all the language that you want to speak. In other words, being a politician is very difficult to get elected in a statewide race anymore, because Greenville is very different than Horry County.
Yep.
Yeah, and Columbia is very different than Charleston. And so it requires, like I said in the beginning, it requires a very special person to get elected statewide, and it's difficult. I think it would be difficult for somebody like me. I'm not going to speak for Chip, because Chip is an exceptional person, Senator Campsen. But I think it would be difficult for me to get elected statewide because, English, as you know, I just sort of say the way I feel, and some people don't appreciate that.
Yep.
So it's an interesting problem that you end up with. Oftentimes, not always, end up with people that don't necessarily represent the entire electorate, especially, let's just say, the entire Republican electorate.
Right.
Because you've got a very small portion of the Republican electorate that are voting in a primary. If we were able to figure out how to, and this has nothing to do with Donald Trump at all. I'm not referencing Donald Trump at all. But if we were able to figure out a way to increase the amount of Republican voters in the Republican primary and the Democrat, I mean, they have the same issue. Certainly, they're pushing farther and farther. It's clear to anybody that has eyes. The Democrat Party is pushing farther and farther to the left in election years, right? You got Joe Biden, who is having summits with AOC and the really crazy
Yep.
folks, in order to make sure that he gets that really crazy leftist vote.
Yep.
Why? Because that's the most extreme people that show out in that primary.
Yep.
And so if there was a way you could figure out how to increase primary voting for Republicans and for Democrats, for both sides of the aisle, I think you'd get a more representative vote in a primary. If you were able to take it from 30 to 70%, 30 to 60%, 30 to 50%, participation in a primary, you would get a significant amount of people that were not already invested in the process to get invested in that process. And you might end up with you might end up with a different kind of America, honestly. And I don't mean more left or more right or more center. That's not what I mean. I mean a more representative government. And that's not a bad thing, honestly.
No. And again, Chip touched on something again, also early back in there. And anybody that is bored and watches the Senate videos at all does realize that as much as y'all still have to stand by your party and do everything else, you guys actually do get stuff done in there. You do actually, get stuff done. And I say that in a sense, all you have to do is just go look through the list at the bills that you guys have worked on and already in this session. It's fun to watch. And you can get tied up in it, people. I promise you, it's like a soap opera. Trust me, you start watching scstatehouse.org, I think. Let me make sure I'm right. scstatehouse.org, I think, or .gov. Go over there and find video schedule and go through and look. You can pick out whatever you want to watch. You can find, from the I love watching when y'all meet, the Forestry and Game Commission. I love watching when you guys meet. Senator McElveen sits on there with y'all, correct?
He does. I hate to see it. He's going. He's not running for re-election.
He backed out?
Yeah, he's not going to run again. I hate that.
Oh, wow.
He's announced that he is not running again.
Oh, that is terrible to hear.
That's, for a Democrat, Senator McElveen's a Democrat.
Yep.
He's the best Democrat, in my opinion, you could ever get. He is hunting and fishing minded. He's,
yep.
If there is such a thing as a conservative Democrat anymore, he is a conservative Democrat. He might not be with the Republican Party on everything, but if you got to have Democrats in some of those districts, and you do,
yep.
because that's just the makeup of the district. If you got to have Democrats in some of those districts, you want some like Senator McElveen. And I hate that he's not going to be with us anymore.
So this is an appointment. So Nick, I guess after this session, as they refill that seat on the commission with you guys, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The governor appoints that position?
No.
Or the president?
No, the governor, no. So what they'll do.
And I say the president, I'm talking about the president of the Senate.
Yeah, no. If you resign, but if you retire and fulfill the rest of your term, then it'll just be a regular election.
Okay.
Right? Like if you resign in the middle or die in the middle, then they'll have a special election immediately. That's like within 90 days or something like that. But no, so he's not going to file again in March. He's going to finish out his term. He's not going to file again in March. We're in March. He's not going to file again in 2 weeks. March 16th is opening day of filing. What is it?
Yeah, so you'll be filing, or you already filed?
No, I'll be filing. Everybody files from March 16th to March 31st.
Okay.
Noon, March 16th is the opening, and noon, March 31st is the closing and of filing. And so you have that 2-week period to file for office, statehouse or Senate in our case. And then there's a primary election in June. If there's ever a runoff, it's 2 weeks later, at end of June. And then you've got a general election in November. Right. So in Thomas's case, Senator McElveen's case, there'll be a primary in June, and then there'll be a runoff, or there'll be a general election in November for whoever files in March.
Yep.
Right.
Well, we wish him the best. He's a good dude. I love texting with him. Actually, he was one of my peacock bass and knife fish recipients this week.
Super good guy.
He is a super good guy. And speaking of which, I'd really like to talk about it. We're at an hour and a half already. Both of us have stuff to do, so we'll save this for another day. But a great trip I took to Florida, South Florida.
Yeah.
Went down to go turkey hunting. It didn't work out for Russ and I to do anything more than build a beautiful blind, which, by the way, you would have been proud of me. It blended in under that hammock really well. And Russ had a big hand in it. I let him help saw down palm limbs and everything else. But we decided that we would fish instead of hunting. And we ended up having a great time. We spent some time on Okeechobee and some time on the river right there behind the house. And we went down to South Florida for a clown knife and peacock bass fishing trip. And it was incredible. Got some great video. I'll get together and put it out there on our YouTube channel. Check it out. It's weird to fish in a drainage ditch, especially when you look around and there's so much talk. And I had so many people that I met the 5 days I was down there and talked to about the water issues down there in South Florida.
Yeah.
We all know, what they're dealing with in the saltwater and obviously in the freshwater. Okeechobee's going through a lot right now. That water level, they're keeping it real high. All the bass fishermen, all the fishermen are really irate about it. You've got Roland Martin, Scott Martin, and that crowd that are fighting it. They want that water level brought down because it is killing the grass, unfortunately, that's under it. And it's going to ruin the fishing. That, I will say, is incredible. I'm talking, we would pull up to a random bunch of grass and just float the boat into the middle of it. And even Russ could pull 3 foot of line out on these crappie rods, and you would just drop it in the water and jig it one time. Move over to another piece of grass and drop it, and catching crappie. I mean, it's a unbelievable fishery. Great time. I never thought. And by the way, they don't call them crappie; they call them specks. Speckled perch is what they call crappie down there. Do not call them crappie. You will get laughed at. I learned that the hard way. I went to a bait shop, and yes, I did ask for crappie minnows. They are not crappie minnows. They are speck minnows. So,
okay.
But we can talk about that a different day. Maybe even get Russ for us to talk about it. Speaking of which, youth weekend this weekend coming up. You know that, right?
I do know that.
You plan on taking a trip?
I'm not going to go this weekend.
You're not? You're going to wait?
Nope. It is Renee's birthday.
Uh-oh.
And what I'm probably going to do is take him opening day. I don't know. I might have to take him out of school. It's Friday, right? Next Friday.
22nd? Is that correct? 22nd?
I'll either take him out of school on Friday the 22nd
Yes.
or I'll wait till the 23rd. If it's going to rain, I was watching the weather. If it's going to be raining on Saturday, I'll probably take him out of school on Friday and take him first thing. If it's not going to be raining on Saturday, we might wait till Saturday.
Russ and I are probably going to fish the Brody Bates tournament this Saturday out of Buck Hall. And as soon as we get off the air, I'm going to pick your brain really hard. It's redfish. One fish per a first grader. One fish is all they need.
Okay.
There's $25,000 in scholarships up.
Oh, wow. Scholarships to like college?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it will go into an account. Whatever he wins goes into an account, and he can cash it in when he goes to college.
When's the tournament?
The tournament is Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yep. And you and I can fish with Tripp and Russ.
Okay. I got to look at my calendar and see if we can do that.
We can have 2 kids on the boat and 2 adults. We cannot touch the rod. They have to do all the fishing. Only in Brody Bates. Now, this is partially run by SALT, the Student Angler League Tournament Trail.
Yeah.
But only in the Brody Bates because of the amount of scholarships and money. They put the rule in effect that we can't assist in any way with a rod. Now,
that's fine.
Yeah, I want to clarify exactly because I know where you're talking, where we can go.
Assuming the fish are still there, water's still pretty chilly. I would think that they're still there.
I do have some good intel from the other direction, from Buck Hall. The tournament's out of Buck Hall. Do have some good intel from the other direction, and for me, it's imperative that I fish in that Key West. So I'm trying to find somewhere, obviously, that I can get with that boat safely and not stuck. And your area would be a perfect spot that we can get to quickly with that boat. And it's live bait and artificial. That's the other thing. You can use live, cut, or artificial. You don't have to fish artificial. So we just have to let them cast.
And the weigh-ins at Buck Hall.
Weigh-ins at Buck Hall, checkouts at Buck Hall.
Have you looked at the tide?
I have not, and that's why I was going to wait till we get off the air.
All right,
So
we'll check it off
We
there.
will check out that tide because
We'll
I don't want
check
to
it
bring
off.
up exactly where it is.
We'll check it
Although
off
we
there
talked
and
about
see.
it.
I got some ideas about where to go.
Yeah, so we can check that, and I know you also have a brother-in-law that fishes down that way, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and you used to live right there on the
I
waterway.
did. We could go either way.
So the water temperature is apparently real cold still, cooler, but we've had a lot of craziness. We got new moon right now.
Spring's a hard time to get them to bite too.
Yep.
It's a hard time to get them to bite, but that doesn't mean that they aren't still in the couple places.
A live well full of live shrimp might help though,
live well full of live shrimp will help for sure.
and maybe some fiddler crabs, maybe a couple blue crabs cut up and thrown on the bottom or something.
What's the entry fee?
I think it's like $25 a kid or something.
Really?
Yeah.
It's subsidized by something else.
It's subsidized by, as of this year, and I can mention that Key West Boats is involved. Sportsman's Boats headed up. They went, and Rayburn went to all the boat manufacturers in South Carolina and said, this is what we do. This is the tournament. And they all contributed. So that's why the scholarship money is so much higher.
First place is.
You want to hear this?
What?
There's only 21 kids as of now signed up.
So first place is $25,000.
No. That's the total fund.
the
Here,
total
I'll
fund.
give you. I'll give you a quick breakdown. It's a great tournament. Deserves the promotion. Hang on one second. I'll give you a quick breakdown on it. I've got the breakdown right here that Rayburn sent me, and it is awesome. So our boys they would fish in the middle school division. That's the division they would fish in. They would fish in the middle school division. And here's the prize fund. Here we go. So, of the total prize money, here we go. 25% of the total money goes to first place in the high school. Now that is they're factoring in that there's going to be two kids on the team, so it's 25% split two ways. Mm-hmm. Second place is 15% of the total prize pool. Third place is 5%, and Big Fish is 5%. That's in the high school division. In the middle school division that we would be in is identical. 25%, 15, and 5, and 5. So think about that to start the kids off. I mean, we got 2 first graders. Get them started off with, that for a college fund, whatever it comes out at. Because like I said, Ray, last he posted, they had raised $25,000 for scholarships. So that's a pretty good hit, to get them started.
For sure.
You still got to finish third or catch the biggest fish to get a part of it, but.
So if it's not, I'm a little bit confused. If it's only one fish, how's it not big?
All right, so hang on, because I might have misspoken on that for this. Hang on. All right. Teams consist of an adult boat captain, 21 or older, and either 1 or 2 student anglers or youth anglers, and they allow 1 additional adult on the boat.
Okay.
And they must be signed up prior. The tournament is free for all members of SALT, which our kids are not yet. And then the high school division is grades 9 through. It is it's $40 entry.
Okay.
$40 entry, March 16th. Hang on, let's make sure. All right, guidelines. The following rules are designed. Inclement weather plan, blah, blah, blah. Blast off, check in, launching, blast off, weigh in. Your boat, trucks will receive. Hang on, I'm trying to find this. All right, live wells, boundaries, boats, boat operation. Hang on. They really go through a lot of all fish must be caught on rod and reel, and an adult cannot touch it. On rod and reel in the boat will count. 1 fish caught. Hang on. Fish length. So I'm guessing. All right, so that makes no sense. So it must be 2 fish. Fish length. I'll have to research.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say. It says 1 fish caught. Regardless, it's a great tournament. The boat captains cannot fish. It doesn't say don't touch the fish. Only fish caught by students on a rod and reel in the boat will count. 1 rod per angler in use at a time. Okay, that's understandable. Red drum. Artificial live or cut baits can be used. Only fish caught with a hook in the mouth will count. Cast nets are forbidden. Dang it. But I still don't see number of fish. I'm going to go on a long limb and just say that it's 2 because why?
All right, we'll figure it out.
We're going to say it's 2, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So you got a bag and you got a biggest fish,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It's got to be that. It's got to be 2 fish.
You would think.
You would think. So we'll look through that. But, yeah, so I was going to pick your brain on that anyway, so we'll talk about it. But it is this Saturday. Launch at Safe Light, and weigh-in is at 3 p.m.
And it's obviously a release.
Oh, live release, yeah.
Live
Fish
release.
has to be alive, and they
And it's got to be a slot fish.
slot fish, and you have to they check live wells. That's why you have to check out a buck haul. Says that in case of inclement weather, I did see this, they might do an open launch, and then you have to return to buck haul. In other words, so they don't have people trying to run too far in the river in winds or anything crazy. You can launch from other places and come back there to weigh.
All right, what time's the weigh-in?
Weigh-in is at 3 p.m. I thought I saw.
Dang it, I might be out if it's at 3.
Check-in begins at 6 in the morning. Weigh-in, once your boat arrives at the dock, well, hang on. How do they not put the weigh-in on there? Rayburn, which is South Carolina law. Well, that's something else. Weigh-in card with emergency, cold tag, weigh-in on your boat, blah, blah, blah. Students, early weigh-in. Well, how in the world did they miss putting the time on here?
No, we'll figure that out too.
March 16th.
I might be out if it's early. That's the day I got to file for office.
Yes, it is.
And that's, I got to be at the election commission at noon. So I might be out. I could probably do the afternoon if they got a late weigh-in. You can come pick me up in Georgetown, me and Trip.
Oh, yeah, that would work.
But it'll have to be a late weigh-in.
I'm going to guess it's 3. That's what Rayburn does. Normally it's either 2 or 3. They do it earlier with the kids, but I will do. I mean, I've looked through the whole thing, and I see no time, so we got to get to work on that. Anyway. All right, man. Great show.
Good to see you.
Good chatting. Good hanging out. And thank you to Senator Chip Campsen for sitting in with us today, y'all. Make sure you go to TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. Check out everything that's going on. And don't forget Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo. Sign up. We'll probably be opening this week at fishingchaos.com. Go download the app and look for Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo. All the information will be right there. Anyway, we'll be back next week, hopefully telling a story about some big redfish we catch with the boys. If not, we'll figure something out to talk about. But we're always going to be talking fins, fur, and feathers here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast. Michelob Ultra and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Southern Crown Partners Incorporated know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mick Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water. Hey, y'all, Captain E here with Southern Anglers Radio Show, and I'll tell you what, I am super excited to be down in the Pond Road Storage in Murrells Inlet. I'm located within moments of either going to the river or going to put in the inlet. I'm keeping that Key West 250 Bay Reef indoors, and it is staying in great shape. I only have to wash the boat once now, and that's when I put it up and not before I take it to go fishing. But you can get incredible options here. 20-foot wide, 50-foot deep with 14-foot roll-up doors, a most state-of-the-art security system to keep you that peace of mind on all your products that you may keep in these storage buildings. You've got climate-controlled or non-climate controlled outdoor storage for trailers, RVs, and such. You can't go wrong. 843-855-7375. Give Chris Collins a good call down there. We can't wait. We love broadcasting down here inside the storage building, and you need to come down here and check it out too. Come down. Pond Road Storage, right here in Murrells Inlet. Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.